Welcome to the If I Had More Time podcast hosted by Mariners Church. This series invites you into a casual conversation with our senior pastor, Eric Geiger, and our teaching team to hear a few insights and truths they wish they had time to include in the weekend message. We hope you enjoy it. Thank you guys so much for joining us for the If I Had More Time podcast today. I am Liz Garcia, and I'm here with our senior pastor, Eric Geiger, who already shared this weekend with everybody that this week's episode is going to be a little different. It's going to be really special.
I'm very excited about this episode. I'm thrilled with what God has been doing in these people's lives, and you're going to love hearing their stories.
Yeah. Before we jump in, you guys are going to get to just dive into these beautiful stories of three people in our church, and so I'm really glad that you're here. There are a couple of things that we didn't get to touch on in this interview with those three individuals that we didn't want to miss the opportunity for you to get to share about, Eric. So in the video, there, as many of you saw this weekend as well, we have Mohsin, who is from a Muslim background, Sumita, who grew up as a Hindu, and then John, who grew up in Judaism. And these people were like, it wasn't just like nominally. I mean, these people were entrenched in this faith. This was a lifestyle.
Yes.
So you guys are in for a real treat to hear all about that. But there were some others that you talked about this weekend, Eric, namely moralism and religion.
Yes, which, as I shared in the message, the majority of people in our church, that would be their default, where they came from.
Right.
They grew up here in the U.S. where we earn, where we acquire, and so it's totally easy to transfer that thinking into how our relationship with God would be. Yeah. There's a ladder I have to climb. If I do more good things in my life than bad things, if I am a great person at work, a kind neighbor, then maybe I'll have done enough for God to accept me. That is would be the common default thinking. Now, obviously, we have, as you see in the rest of this podcast, by God's grace, we have people in our church who come from different world religions who are exploring the Christian faith, and we're so just blown away, honored that they would be with us, and love that they are checking out who Jesus is in the Scripture. But that would be the minority. The majority would be people who, I think I'm going to go to church, someone who's not a Christian. I think I'm going to go to church, or my friend invited me to church, and the default would be I have to work my way to Him. I have to climb the ladder to Him. Yes. And so, we can think of those other world religions as, well, those are so different, but and they are different in their beliefs, but the approach to God is the same. There's a ladder I have to climb. And we want to be sure that we distinguish the gospel from moralism. So gospel means good news. It's what Christ has done for you. It's not good advice of, hey, here's things you need to do to climb the ladder to earn God's love. Yeah. So we, as Christians, the core belief for us is the gospel. Yes. The good news of what Christ has done. Yeah. Eric, you really, this weekend, this gospel presentation, it was not cheapened by any of the moralistic language that sometimes we can attach even to the gospel. Like I think about this moralism thing is something that actually can sneakily still attach itself to me. It's very true. Martin Luther, the great reformer, he called religion the great default of the human heart. So like you open up Microsoft Word, there's a default, Times New Roman is like the default font. If you want to type in Arial or Cambia or something else, you have to change it. Yeah. Well, I mean, he's saying the default. Do you have a favorite font? I just go with the default, which only helps the illustration. Yes. Because you have to change if you want to go away from the default. Yeah. And Luther's saying religion's the default. You're going to go back to thinking you have to earn God's love. Yes. Because everything else in this world is that way. Yeah. So that's the default, and the gospel's otherworldly. The gospel's no, Christ secured salvation for you. It's His work, not your work. Yeah. So this message this weekend, obviously, yes, is for those who are coming from different faith backgrounds entirely. And it was for me too. Yeah, it's for me too. All of us to remind myself over and over again of the gospel. Yeah, and for another reason too. I have many people in my life
who do not know Jesus,
Right.
do not know the gospel. And this is a great time for us to talk about too, how do I talk about these?
Yep.
You did an amazing presentation of these. I, as Liz, out there in the world where I don't have Eric Geiger in my back pocket to explain these world religions
Right.
to my neighbor, to the girls at the gym, things like that. How do I engage
Yep.
with people to evangelize?
Yeah, I wouldn't think you need to know the eightfold pathway of Buddhism to explain the gospel. You just want to be able to know, there's religion, which is climb a ladder, and there's Christ, which is descend and die on a cross, to realize the difference between success, climbing a ladder, and rescue, Jesus coming here. You don't need to know all of to the person listening who has a friend they want to share the gospel with. If you have a desire to share the gospel with your friend, it's really beautiful. It means God's working on you. Mm-hmm. He really is. The fact that you want to share the gospel with someone is God's grace in your life. The fact that you love someone enough to share the gospel with them is God's grace in your life. And the fact that you have the desire, it's also beautiful. It means that God's going to use you to expose his grace to somebody else. I mean, God's going to use you. So you asking that question is just amazing. You don't, more than you needing to know everything about someone's background, you just knowing the good news of what Christ accomplished and how he changed you, that's all you really need to know to share the gospel with someone. You can listen, ask questions, share what you believe, and then also not put pressure on yourself for the response.
Yeah.
That it's the response of the person is not on your ability to know the right transition statement.
Yeah.
And say the right thing at the right time.
Yeah. Come in with the closer and seal the deal.
You're liberated from that. You don't have to live with that pressure. God doesn't want you to live with that pressure. You share the good news that Christ has changed you.
Yeah.
And what's changed you is not a ladder. What's changed you is the cross.
Yeah.
And the reality for most of the people who are listening, the friends that they have who do not yet know the gospel, their ladder is not Hinduism or Islam or Buddha. It's moralism. Mm-hmm. It's religion. And they may not call themselves religious, but it's thinking I'm going to be a good enough person to get to God.
Yeah.
That's the majority of the people's friends who are listening.
Yes. And you guys will hear this when you listen to those three individuals' stories here in just a moment. There was something unique about each of their stories as well, which was, it was unique but similar across all three of them, that they all fell in love with Jesus as they fell in love with the people of God too.
That's beautiful.
So the importance of keeping an open relationship with these people that you are sharing the gospel with, and being kind and being tender and merciful towards them like Jesus was towards you, you'll see it. These people light up when they talk about the first time they walked onto a church campus.
It's awesome.
Yeah, amazing. I'm so excited to
jump
in. Let's get out of the way.
You're going to love this. You're going to love this.
It's such an honor to be here with each of you, and I'm so grateful that you said yes to sharing your stories with our church. Why don't you guys go ahead and take a moment and introduce yourselves?
Sure. My name is Sunita, and I grew up in the Hindu faith, and I became a Christian in my late 20s.
Amazing.
This is Mohsen, and I was born and I was raised in a Muslim family, and I came to Christ 2 years ago.
Amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
I can't wait for you guys to get to share more. I'm already jumping in.
Hi, my name is John. I was raised in the Jewish faith, strong Jewish ties back to my history, my parents, grandparents going way back, and came to Mariners Church and to becoming a Christian in my 60s, about 7 years ago.
Beautiful. Why don't you go ahead and start us off? Share a little bit about what was your faith experience growing up? How did you think about God? What were your practices?
Came from a strong Jewish community. My parents were active in starting the synagogue in our community. They sponsored Jews that were Holocaust survivors. and we grew up with a big Jewish community of both immigrants and regular American Jews as well. Uh, my faith was central to our family life. We went to synagogue. I was confirmed in religious school. I was bar mitzvahed. I spent a year in Aliyah, which is uh, homeland trip to Israel, and spent 2 years in Israel studying both Judaism, Zionism, being educated in fully in my Jewish faith, and in the seeing as how Israel and Jerusalem is the center of most of the faiths of the world.
Wow. Wow. And when did you come to know Jesus?
I came to know Jesus at a crossroads in my life. I probably, like a lot of people, I experienced trauma. I was faced with cancer,
Mhm.
and I was paralyzed. I knew God. I felt I knew, had faith, but I didn't have spiritual grounding. I had a cultural experience that was very, very strong. Um, and a historical experience that was strong, but my cultural experience and historical experience didn't end up with a spiritual in that I could rely on, and I was just lost. And a friend of mine, brought me into Mariners, just a few seats back there, and wow, I'm home. This is where I need to be,
Wow.
and that started my journey of faith into accepting Jesus and becoming a Christian.
Wow. It's beautiful. Thanks for sharing. We'll hear more from you in a
Yes.
minute. Like, Samita, what about you? Why don't you share about your experience growing up in the Hindu faith?
Sure. So I grew up in a heavy immigrant community in Los Angeles, with many Indians, and all who celebrated certain holidays like Diwali or Holi, and those were pretty much the only times we would go to a temple. At home, we prayed to many gods. Um, there is a god for love, a god for death, a god for youth, and we would pray to statues. And a lot of times it felt like we were praying for things, um, for potentially material things. And I really didn't understand reincarnation. Karma was always taught to me, dharma and karma. So, these were things that I just grew up with, and didn't understand who exactly I was praying to because I didn't have any relationships with those
Yeah.
gods.
Yeah. Dharma and karma. Could you explain that a little bit for those that might be listening those are words that I think many people might hear in culture.
Sure.
But do we actually know the origins? I'd love for you to share just a little bit.
Well, karma is really something that people may have heard. What goes around comes around, right? And karma can take form in what they call the reincarnation. So karma can come back to you in another life. You may come back as an animal. If you felt that material things were important to you, you may come back as someone very poor. And that is the concept of karma in the Hindu religion, and they do strongly believe in it.
Yeah. Yeah. How did that impact how you thought about God? Was there any kind of emotion that came with that?
Yeah, it felt very mythical, almost like we're looking at statues, we're praying to statues. There's a lot of stories about Ganesh. Lord Ganesh is what they call him. And the powers and the qualities of these gods felt very surreal. And it was just very difficult to have a conversation with any particular god. I actually grew up doing Indian classical dance, and in Indian classical dance, we embody the gods in dance form. And so I've learned hundreds of different gods in my body in,
Wow.
in form and shape. But again, never felt that I had a relationship with any of these gods.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And man, it's hard to just capture when you came to know Jesus in a short little time. But would you share a little bit about when you came to know him?
Sure. One thing I want to add is that I grew up with doctors and scientists, and there's a physiological component of Jesus that is very difficult to wrap my head around. Um, I was taught that Christians believe in a man who rose from the dead, and that
Yes, we
is
do.
that is a very difficult thing to understand,
It is. Yeah.
right? Especially as a young girl. Um, and I did my own research and read, Case for Christ. I found the evidence was real. And then the Bible became real to me. So the
Wow.
word, the message, wasn't just the action of raising from the dead, but rather um, the word that was so powerful. And so you asked me when I became Christian. It was a process.
Yeah.
It happened over a decade. It did not happen overnight. In my 20s, my now husband started taking me to church. And every week, every Sunday, when I would listen to the message, I felt like the message was speaking directly to me
Hmm.
in my life. And I would leave, crying, sobbing after every message because I felt like the Holy Spirit was working inside me. And I just could not understand it. My husband and I had many fertility issues. I've had 11 pregnancies. I have 3 healthy boys, though. Doctors did tell us that it was not possible. And, I look back and I think that is the miracle of God, is that I had 3 healthy, beautiful boys. Um, and then to really test my faith in 2019, my eldest son was hit by a car. And it was pretty traumatic. And we did almost lose him. But I do remember falling to my knees and praying to Jesus and just really pouring out my heart in the middle of an ER.
Wow.
Um, and he heard our prayers. He really did. He saved my son so that he could serve.
Wow.
And so my faith was tested, and that was a time in my life, a traumatic experience like John had, where there was no one else to rely on but God. And he actually produced my 3rd son just a year later on the day to the accident, and I don't think that's any coincidence. I think he really just heard me.
Wow.
I just want to thank you for your story. It's
Yeah.
beautiful, and I'm having chills listening to your story of faith, and I can relate to that.
So it's my service. When you're born in a Muslim family, this is a rule that you gotta be a Muslim and you have no other way around. And if you come out of the religion, you will be called as infidel and you will be prosecuted. And I was like most of Middle Eastern. I was born in a Muslim family and I was raised in that family. And my family, they used to be very religious. But from my age of like 8 to 9, I couldn't understand the concept of Islam because I saw people, religious people, they are talking about good things, but they're not acting good. It's like being a hypocrite, a total hypocrite. And I didn't like that. So, as it was a tradition, I follow and I read many books about Islam. And I tried to understand it from the main sources that they were supporting Islam, not those sources that they were criticizing Islam. So I wrestled hard with Islam, but I couldn't find my purpose. I couldn't find my joy. And at the age of like my early 20s, I just ended up with Islam. I said that let me find my purpose and joy in materials, like cars, houses, good kind of living, enjoying going to many countries, clubbing, dancing, being a womanizer, gambling, and all of those things. They were good, I mean, to tell you the truth, they were good, but only for like a matter of hours or day two. So I try to increase the intensity of those things because when you do those things, it's good for an hour, for good for a day or two, and after that you get bored of it. So you have to increase the intensity, and there's a limit of each one. You cannot increase it till eternity. It's like a limit. Our body has a limit in drinking, being up or going to clubs and those things. So at my late 20s, I just ended up with that. I found out that's not joyful. That's not fulfilling. That's not what I was looking for. Because in my entire life, I was looking for meaning of my life, purpose for my life. This is the question of many guys and gals that they want to have a purpose. Because when we don't have a purpose in life, we are like bored, and we are like don't have any feeling to continue the life. And I was trying to just fight my suicidal thoughts at my late 20s, because I tried Islam, it didn't work. I tried materials, it didn't work, and I had no other options. So I was broken till my late 30s, and I was trying to wrestle and trying to find my joy, but at the end it wasn't fulfilling. I was like hopeless, and I was broken and devastated internally, and I couldn't find any reason for my life. And why should I live? Why should I keep on going when I don't enjoy any seconds of my life? Yeah.
Mohsen, you had shared with me before, we got to chat many times leading up to this.
Yes.
And you had shared with me about the remarkable story of you seeking, yearning, wanting to know the truth. And God revealed himself to you in quite the spectacular way. Would you mind sharing that story?
Of course, of course. And this is the reason that I came here to share it with everyone. Because at the beginning, I was so shy to talk about my testimony. And but Eric Hurt, he was discipling me. He's one of the pastors here. And he told me, if your testimony can motivate non-believers to become Christians, or it can fortify believers to have a better faith, you have to do that. It's like a must. So that's why I'm here. And the thing is, at my like late 30s, I was like 37, 38 years old. I found myself broken, and I found there was no purpose. And I remember one night, I told God that, please show yourself to me, because I always knew from my childhood there is a true God who created all this vast universe, who created us, who created all these creations. So it's not a coincidence. It's no way it's a coincidence. So I was just praying with my own words to God, please show yourself to me. I really need you. I'm broken. And I fell asleep. And when I was asleep, I had a vision that there was a tall, white, old guy came to me. And I asked him, who are you? He said, I'm Randy. I told him, I'm broken. Please help me. And he said, search for the light. And I told him where to find the light. He said, Mariners. At that time, I had no idea about the church, no idea about Mariners, no idea about Southern California. I was just living in San Francisco, and I've never been even here. So I told him that you're confusing me. What do you mean? Randy, Mariners, search for the light. He said, search for the light, you will find peace. And I woke up. I was like drenched in sweat. And the first thing I would do is, whenever I want to do something, I search the web for that. And I searched the Mariners, everyone popped up. It was like, I remember exactly, it was like Thursday morning, Wednesday night. And I told myself, I have to look for it. So I took off and I rented Airbnb.
Can I pause you? Did you look at any other link? Like, did you look at the Mariners baseball team? Did you look at any other kind of
I just mentioned Mariners, everyone church
That was
popped
the
up.
first one. It's amazing. In San Francisco. Okay, sorry, keep going. It's incredible.
Yeah. And it was like Thursday morning, I rented an Airbnb. Now I know that area was Newport Beach. It was far away from the church. And I came here and I went to my Airbnb. I put my stuff over there and I came to Mariners with my GPS. And the funny thing is, because I had no idea about the church, and I found people are lining in the thrift store. And I went inside and I told them, I'm looking for a guy called Randy. He said, we don't ask the names. It's so many Randys here. I mean, what do you mean? And they sent me to the Global Cafe. And from the Global Cafe, they sent me to the ministry office. And at the place, I met Slider, one of the security guys. He prayed over me and invited me for the young adult service, which was at the Thursday night. And this is the blown away part. I just got into the service, and it started with a beautiful worship, beautiful song. I didn't know that's a, no, I thought it's a part of ritual. I didn't know that's a worship song. And Dallas Piva, he's one of my best pastors, and he went for the message. And this is the blown away part. He said, Jesus is the light of the world. He will conquer the darkness. If you follow him, you will find peace. I was like blown away because it was completing my vision, and I didn't tell Dallas that this was my vision. But at the beginning, I was skeptical. I thought maybe they're always talking about these verses, and I was talking about that Jesus is the light of the world. So at the end of the service, I went back to him. They asked him, "Do you always talk about these things?" He said, "No, once in 2 years." I was like blown away. So it was completing my puzzle. And I told myself, this is not normal. This is not coincidence. So he invited me for the Saturday service. And, I have to explain this part that, in my faith, in Islam faith, they believe non-believer and Christians are not clean. And, whenever, even if that you want to go to their mosque to visit the architecture of the mosque, they put on a rag on the top of the carpet. So they don't want that carpet to be dirty. And they don't allow any non-believers, Christians, anyone to be in the prayer while they're praying. It's like they never do that. And you know what I saw? I saw everyone was open-armed. I was like amazed because, they don't know what was my past. They don't know how do we treat, Christians, how do we treat Jews. They don't have any idea. And I saw they were open-armed, they were hugging me, they were, loving me, they were caring about me, they were so kind. I was like, fell in love with Christianity. At the first Saturday which I was there, I got goosebumps, It was amazing. So I started to coming back every week for like 7 months to Mariners. And every week going back and forth to San Francisco, like 10 hours, 9 hours drive.
Oh my goodness. Some people don't want to make the drive over from, I don't know.
Irvine.
Yeah, Irvine.
The other side of Irvine.
My goodness. So you came back and forth for many months.
Yeah. And it was a very good feeling, especially once I was coming from San Francisco to here. I was gonna be in the sanctuary. I was gonna having a good time. I was so excited to be here, and it touched my heart. And with that dream, I believe that Jesus knocked the door of my heart, and I opened up, and I hugged him, and I never let go. Have you seen these children when they hug you, they never let go? Yeah. I'm like that child toward Jesus. So he's my true father. And from the third week, I started serving, and my old life. I love to serve, but there was no good setup to serve. And here I found Mirrors, they have a beautiful setup. Wherever you want, whatever you want to do, there is a good place to serve. And I started serving in the parking. I ended up serving like 6 days a week now.
Oh my goodness. We've talked about this. Yes, we need to make sure you're getting your rest too. That's beautiful. I love this picture so much that you are clinging to Jesus, clinging to God as your Father. And because of that, I know that from that, that's what causes you to serve. We all see that in you.
I have to tell you that I found my Randy here. That's another blown away part.
Okay.
That I didn't know that. It was like 4 months I was serving at the church and coming to here. And Sherry told me we found her Randy. I told him, oh my God. And she went to the right side, but I saw Randy on the left side. It was exactly like my dream. And I was like, amazing to see. I'm still calling him Angel. You probably see this video. And I told him, how did you find me? He said, in my life, I deal with Muslims and I pray for them to become Christians. So, it was like, oh my God, that's the answer of prayers. That's the answer of prayers, yeah. So it was like all like motivation in my life, all like motivation. So I just call Mariners my home now.
Wow.
My first home here. And whenever I'm here, I feel calm and I feel so good and excited.
That's beautiful. We love that you are a part of our church. Listen. John, would you speak to how your experience of like a corporate worship or religious gathering, how that changed or how the difference now that you're a Christian versus your experience growing up?
You know, when you go to synagogue, similar to what your guys' experience has been, it's in Hebrew. You know, and it's a very Judaism is a religion and a faith of order and rules, and Christianity is the belief in the faith of something unseen. I wanted to clarify one thing, and that is, I'm a Jew. I'm a Messianic Jew. You know, Jesus was of the lineage of David, and he was a Jew. And so I feel I'm part of that movement, you know, and that I've accepted our Messiah.
Wow.
And have accepted this Holy Spirit within me, and have accepted Jesus Christ as our Lord, my Lord and Savior, really has been not a departure from my faith. It's a reinforcement of my Judaism and a fulfillment of what Judaism promises to have accepted Jesus here at Mariners. So I don't feel like I had to turn away. You know, I got pushback, no doubt, from my family members, including my kids, for a while. But now they sit with me in church.
Oh, how beautiful.
But I don't. I'm proud of my Jewish lineage, my Jewish culture, my Jewish heritage,
I love that.
and I just feel like I'm a fulfillment of that. And so, you know, to have this, and I attach myself to faith. My spirituality has grown leaps and bounds. The interactions that I see, what the church does to help people, and this belief that the Messiah will bring peace to this earth is something that I cling on to very, very tightly, and that I hold closely to. So that's what keeps me coming back. That's what keeps me involved and engaged, hopeful, optimistic,
Yeah.
and in love with this church and our Christian faith.
So beautiful. Thank you, John. Sumita, what about you? Would you share a little bit of your experience now in the religious gathering of the Christian church versus what your experience was like visiting temples growing up?
Sure. I mean, a lot of what John and Mosen said, you know, number one, I'm very proud still of my Indian culture.
Yeah.
You know, I still dress up for Diwali, and I still throw colors at Holi, and I do those things because they're cultural. But my belief is somewhere else, right? My faith is somewhere else. And you know, Mosen, he mentioned people hugging you and welcoming you. That was something that I was not used to. I grew up in LA, guys. I mean, nobody's giving you a warm hug on the corner, you know, of Pico Boulevard. So, you know, it was something very new to me, and sort of and strangely beautiful. And I wanted to know more about it.
Yeah.
Right. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, you know, Christianity wasn't just believing that Jesus rose from the dead, or even just reading the word. It's my lifestyle. This is my new life. And I could see that it affected all of the people who had those open arms. I could see it affected their life.
Yeah.
They were acting and talking and listening in a way that that the Bible teaches us to.
Yeah.
Right. And so I wanted to know more about that. I wanted to learn that and be that mother and be that wife, and be that boss, you know? So, it wasn't easy coming here today, but I do believe we all have purpose. And maybe, just maybe, our purpose today was to share with others who are on the fence about their faith, who are afraid to take that leap, who are afraid to try something new. And I will admit that I have family members who still don't know I am Christian. That is another step for me. And I also have family who do know but push back. And it's a struggle from that sense. But I have the courage to show up today and say this publicly that I believe.
So beautiful. Your courage is going to inspire so many people in our church, Sumita, starting with me right now. So
I hope
thank
so.
you so much. Yes. Wilson, would you share a little bit about how you, your thoughts about God when you were young? And I love how you share your story where you were just seeking from a really young age, trying to find the truth. I'm so curious how you thought about God then, but how you think about him now and how it's different.
In fact, when I was a child, as I told you, I was a Muslim, and I couldn't believe that God is so rough and so cruel to his children, to his creation. So I thought that's not true, because if you imagine a good father, he will always take care of his children. He will never teach one of them to hurt the other one. This is the principle. So I told myself, this is not a God. This is not true. I have to mention that when I'm discipling and evangelizing Muslims, they believe that the God of Christianity is the same God that as they believe, but it's wrong. The God of Christianity is different than Allah. So I just tell them, you're not believing in the God of Christianity, because they teach us as a Muslims. So Jesus was a prophet, and alongside with other prophets. But the last prophet was Muhammad. So there is a conflict between the thinking of Christians and also Muslims. I'm just bringing this up for you. Maybe some Muslim, they might see this video and they can figure out. You have to go and study that what is the true God and who is the true God, and the difference between God of Christianity and God of Islam. So I was searching for him all over my life, and I was in love with astronomy. I used to teach astronomy a few years ago, and I know how vast is the universe. And whatever we see is just 6% of whatever is available over there. 94% is dark energy and dark matter, which we cannot see, but we see the effect. Can you imagine all these universe, galaxies, and those things was a coincidence? No way. No, that's not acceptable. And
I love that. I love that there's a childlikeness to your faith even before you knew God. It was like you were searching for him, but there were these things that he put in you. So amazing.
Yeah, but the thing is, believing in God, it creates a purpose for you. It comes. Both of them are coming on the same path. So once I was Muslim, I couldn't find my purpose. I had no idea about the God at all. And when I was into materials and atheists, I was like, only material, only earthly joys will fulfill me. But that didn't work too. So after that vision, after I was baptized in Mary's church, it was amazing that I found the purpose of life is serving the Lord and bringing glory to His kingdom. I'm already, the salvation has already, covered me, and I know I'm saved. But as a Muslim, they always teach us that you have to do lots of things to earn your place in heaven. But that's not Christianity. We already got it. But just only believe in Him. But just only believe in Him, and we are already saved. So the things that we are doing is just bringing glory to His kingdom, and this is my purpose.
It's so amazing how each of you have come from such different backgrounds, but there does seem to be these similar themes throughout your story of lacking understanding of who God was and really truly knowing Him personally, to coming to know Him as the one you can cry out to, and to knowing Him as Father, and to knowing Him as your Redeemer, as your Messiah is so beautiful. The differences, but man, what deep similarities as well. So amazing. John, is there anything that you would share with somebody who might be listening that's curious about the Christian faith? Whether they come from a Jewish background or any other faith background, how might you encourage them?
Walking in this path has opened my eyes so dramatically. And I want to talk about something that both of you two have talked about. I heard your story for Eric probably a year ago or longer, and I was inspired by the story. And your story that you shared today was just heartwarming
Thank you.
beautiful, and thank you. But I want to say that, I think culturally, men don't have any friends. And I'm so fortunate that this community here at Mariners has wrapped their arms around me through the men's ministry. And now my best friends are the men of Mariners. So I would say that God wants us to be in community. And
Mm.
our ability to do that here is just it's just an action away from opening your heart and being willing to participate to have that in your life.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. It's so good. Samita, what about you? You shared about the purpose of today and you sharing your story. There's no doubt that you guys are here to encourage those that might be curious. If you could speak to them directly, if they could hear your voice, what might you encourage them with?
Be patient with yourself. As I mentioned, my experience was a process, and it happened over a long period of time. I think in addition to that, just give yourself grace to process what you're hearing, what you're seeing, um, and have patience, because Jesus will always be there for you when you're ready.
It's beautiful. Wilson, what about you?
To be honest, if I would find someone, because I'm doing evangelizing, I'm doing discipleship in ministries, and I see them. I see these guys that are either atheists or any background, and I would tell them to come and see the love and caring of Jesus in his church, to come and see how do they treat you, how do they behave. These are the fruits of the Spirit. These are the fruits of the Spirit that these guys, they already have. It's amazing to test and to try and to feel the love of Jesus. It's incredible. It's incredible. It's like the best love, the best joy that you can ever have. It's not even comparable. It's way different than other joys. It's like amazing.
I have children that have been in addiction and have come out of addiction, and and the things that we're talking about right now have to do about coming from another culture or another experience or another background or another life, that really being a Christian is kind of frowned upon, right? So the natural human reaction to that is we feel shame and we feel some guilt. I remember when the first presentation I did, I was like, I don't know who's going to see this. I was afraid of it, but it helped me embrace my Christianity even more. So I would say, one of the things I'd want to say to anybody who was curious is to be courageous, is to be willing to step out into the light, is to be proud of our faith, of who we are and what we believe in, and own it. And, just grab it, and own it, because that's so incredibly powerful, self-fulfilling, and it's a beautiful gift that you can give yourself and others.
So good.
I just want to add something that please go and study and research for that. And it's so easy now because everything is available on the web, or they can, decide that which one is right. But in the old time, they have to go to the mosque or they have to go to, church to understand those things. But now it's so easy. Everything is available, and they could be the best judge for themselves. Which one is true? And they can put it on the scale and see which one is heavy, which one is right.
Well, it is a tremendous honor, truly, to hear each of your stories, and not just your stories, but then your exuberance and your passion and your conviction around your faith now and who Jesus is. It has challenged me greatly, and all of our friends on our set right now, I know I'm looking at all of us going, man, this is one we won't forget. So thank you guys so much for your courage. Like John said, thank you so much for your boldness and your willingness to share. We're so grateful.
Yeah. Giving us this opportunity to be here. I mean, it's really an honor.
The honor is ours.
I just want to thank you also for giving me this opportunity, because, they have to know. they have to recognize which one is right. And this is a very good thing because we have everyone from different religion, different faith. They came here around the table and we're talking about the true Savior, which is Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
I am so thankful for Mohsen, Sumita, and John. Their stories refresh my heart. The way that God's grace has changed them and is changing them is just beautiful. So refreshing. So refreshing. God's grace is awesome. Thank you for
Amen.
listening to the If I Had More Time podcast.
Thanks for listening to the If I Had More Time podcast hosted by Mariners Church. We hope to see you next weekend at any of our congregations throughout Southern California or online. To view our locations and service times, be sure to check out our website at marinerschurch.org.